Are you tired of losing because you don't want to spend your hard-earned cash on digital cards? And are you tired of people recommending you to play this clown? What's going on, guys? My name is Susu from Head-to-Head Battles, and in today's episode, we're going to be going over the top 5 budget decks of Season 2. Before we dive into it though, if you guys like content like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Hit that notification bell to join the squad, and comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of the decks or the tech choices that I've included in the deck profiles. Before we dive into our first deck, you're going to see some URs that are not in archetype, okay? These are URs that you should have crafted after watching this video, and they're not going to be reflected into the final UR count, alright guys? So, let's get into the first deck. Alright, so the first deck on our list is going to be True Dracos. Now, we've already done an in-depth profile on this, but this one is even cheaper. All right, so let's get right into it. Now, the only 2 URs that you are playing are Terraforming and Chicken Game, and here's the reason why. Dragonic Diagram is at 1, so if you open Terraforming and Dragonic Diagram, you effectively have a brick in your hand. That's why you play Chicken Game, but this card is actually insane. Let's read it together. This card says, the player with the lowest LP takes no damage. Once per turn during the main phase, the turn player can pay 1,000 life points, then activate one of these effects, okay? You can either draw a card, destroy this card, or make your opponent gain 1,000 LP, and neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. So that's the main reason we have 2 URs. If you're really strapped for cash, you don't even need Chicken Game, but I do highly recommend it, all right? So let's talk about some of the better cards in the deck, okay? Card of Demise is really good because you essentially spit your entire hand onto the board. So usually when you resolve Card of Demise, you are drawing 3, and you don't really care about the drawback of your opponent takes no battle damage because you're not doing any battle damage anyways, alright? So the next best card in the deck is the Monarch's Erupt. Now, this deck has only tribute summon monsters and no extra deck, so we kind of meet the requirements for this card. Essentially, it's a skill drain, but only for your opponent, which is really, really nice, okay? And finally, True Draco Apocalypse. There are times where your opponent is going to summon a Golden Lord with 3,500 attack, and you simply cannot get over it. This card will solve all your problems, okay? Let's read the pertinent effect. It says, you can target one other True Draco or True King card you control, destroy it, and if you do, the attack and defense of all face-up monsters your opponent controls become half their current attack and defense. Now, this card is really good because you can activate it in damage step, meaning that if you activate it in damage step, and your opponent has already declared an attack, they can't stop that declaration. So if your opponent's Elic is 3,500 and they're beating into, let's say, a Dynamite, which is at 2,500, as they're declaring the attack, you're going to flip the card face up, and when they finally beat into it, they're only beating into it with 1,750, which is half of 3,500, and you'll be destroying their Golden Lord, and you'll gain a net advantage there, which is really, really nice. So if you guys want to play a control style deck that can play really well going first and still break boards going second, I really do highly recommend True Dracos, which is definitely a Plat 1 tier deck on a budget, all right? So let's move on to deck number 2. Alright, so the next deck on my list is going to be Crusades. Now, the UR count for this deck is also really low, and I'll have it up above somewhere. Now, you can see that there are a lot of URs in this deck, but the Raigeki and the Monster Reborn are URs that you get as you play solo mode. Duster is the only real UR that we're playing because these Lightning Storms can effectively be like Twin Twister or Cosmic Cyclones, right? The last UR that you see is Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax, but you generally don't even need this UR because there are not a lot of instances where you're going to be going into it, okay? So, let's talk about some of the more interesting techs in this deck, okay? Your main boss monster is Crusadia Equalmax. Now, this card says, it gains attack equal to the combined original attack of all monsters this card points to, right? And notice how it has an arrow facing up. Now, we are playing 9 Kaijus in the deck, and the Kaiju serve 2 purposes. 1, to out your opponent's boss monster, and 2, to beef up your own boss monster, right? Because if you summon this to a link arrow where Crusadia Equalmax is pointing to, it'll gain 2,200, right? And your absolute best card in the deck, and the last thing you're going to be special summoning in the combo, is Crusadia Maximus. This card says you can target one Crusadia Link monster you control. This turn, if it battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage it inflicts your opponent is doubled, right? So if you summon Equalmax and is pointing to a Kaiju that's already 4,200, 4,200 plus the 16 is going to be 5,800. And if you special summon Crusades Leonis for another 12, what are you at? Like 7,000 times 2, which is 14,000 into 2,200, which is definitely OTK, all right? All the Crusadia monsters have the same first line where it says you can special summon this card in defense to a zone where your link monster is pointing to, so it's really, really nice. And generally, any 2 Crusadia monsters is full combo, right? And in a best of 1 format, you want to be, sometimes like you do want to go second because, you know, you don't, there's like, you have a chance of bricking and you have a chance of your opponent playing this deck and slapping the shit out of you. All right, so the third deck on our list is Prank Hits. Now, the UR count for this deck is a little bit higher than the last 2, but 2 of those UR spots are being taken up by your boss monster in the extra deck, okay? So Prank Hits Battle Butler is basically a Raigeki, and it says you can tribute this card, right? And that's for cost. But with the addition of Meow Meow Moo, which is at 3 in Master Duels, instead of tributing your boss monster for cost, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead, right? So this is a very mid-range deck with a lot of 1-card starters. And on top of that, you do play a lot of hand traps, so you can definitely play going second as well. This deck is really good because it kind of puts up the same board over and over again. And there's a lot of recursion with Prank Hits pranks because you can shuffle back 3 Prank Hits cards in the graveyard every turn, which is really, really nice. And on top of that, you get to draw a card, okay? So, one of the more notable cards in this deck is Prank Hits Bow Wow Bark. And this card alone will win you a lot of games, okay? So, let's read this card together. This card says, a Prank Hits monster this card points to gains 1,000 attack. All right, we don't really care about that one, okay? During your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can tribute this card, then target 2 Prank Hit cards with different names in your graveyard except the link monsters and add them to your hand. So this effect will help you fuel your Prank Hits Pandemonium. Also, Prank Hits monsters you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects this turn. There's been a lot of instances where people try to like pop my Prank Hits or pop the Battle Butler, and they're just really frustrated because they don't read Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So if you can spend a little bit more money and you want to play a deck that's very mid-range and very grindy and rewards you for playing well, I really do recommend you picking up Prank Hits because you definitely won't regret it. Okay, so our fourth deck, and notably our most expensive, is Sky Strikers with a UR count of 8 to 9. Now, Strikers is a very control / mid-range deck where it rewards you for playing well, even more so than Prank Hits, right? And their gimmick is really, really cool. So generally, their spell cards have 1 effect, but if you have 3 or more spells in graveyard, it becomes 2 effects, right? Some of your more notable cards is your main monster, Sky Striker Ace Ray. Okay, so let's read this card together. This card says quick effect. You can tribute this card, and this is for cost, so you can dodge a lot of hand traps this way. You can special summon 1 Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone. And while this card is in your graveyard, if a face-up Striker Ace Link monster you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon this card, which is really, really good, okay? Some of your more notable spell cards, however, are Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. This card is literally Pot of Greed, but better. So let's read this card together. This says, if you control no monsters in your main monster zone, add 1 Sky Striker card from your deck to your hand except itself. Then, if you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard, you can draw a card. So it kind of loses the RNG aspect of drawing 2 because you're literally searching 1 and then drawing 1 for free. So these are your absolute must-needed URs in the deck, okay? Some of your other absolutes are Reinforcement of the Army because this will get you Sky Striker Ace Ray. You generally don't even need the terraforming, but it is highly recommended, okay? Another really good Sky Striker spell card is Widow Anchor. Now, Widow Anchor is basically a target negate, but if you have 3 or more spells in the graveyard, you can take control of that monster until the end phase, and this is a really sneaky way to attack for game because this deck doesn't really put up a lot of damage unless you absolutely know you have game, because that way you can go into Access Code Talker. You can link climb into Access Code Talker really easily and basically pop all your opponent's cards and then attack straight for game. So if you have a little bit more money to spend and you guys want to try a really fun and cool deck, and definitely a wildly popularized deck, I really do recommend Sky Strikers. All right, so on to the 5th and final deck. All right, so the 5th and final deck is Dragon Maids. Now the UR count is about 5 to 6, and this is another control / mid-range deck, right? This deck has a lot of recoverability, which is really nice, and one of your main cards that help you recover is Dragon Maid Tiding. So Dragon Maid Tiding says you can target 1 dragon monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls or in their graveyard and return them to the hand. And you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon one Dragon Maid monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position, but return it to the hand during the end phase. But you can only use one or the other effect per turn, but generally it doesn't matter because you don't use the banish effect until your opponent's turn anyways, right? Your boss monster here is Dragon Maid Shao. Now this card is really good because in your standby phase, it helps you net advantage while also being an Omni Negate. And once you use the Omni Negate, it will summon you your mini boss monster in House Dragon Maid. Now, House Dragon Maid, basically, whenever a Dragon Maid monster goes from field to hand or just moves, you can pop a card and it's not once per turn. So it's really nice. Another one of your boss monsters and kind of one of the URs that you absolutely do need to spend is Heraldic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, because this card also does two things for you, okay? One, it will spin a card on the field after tributing itself for cost. Secondly, you can special summon a dragon monster from your hand or deck, but make its attack and defense 0, but you generally don't care because you're generally summoning Chamber Dragon Maid, which will add you a Dragon Maid spell or trap, or you're dumping a card with Parlor Dragon Maid. So generally speaking, you know, you really don't care that it has a 0 attack and defense because you're not really using it for that purpose anyways. And I know you're looking at the extra deck and you're only seeing 9 cards. The reason here is the other 6 can be straight fillers. These are the only 9 that you really need because we are playing the Pot of Prosperity version and not the Extra version, right? Because if you're playing Pot of Extravagance, because the 6 is random, you need to be playing 3 houses and 3 Shaos, which makes the deck insanely expensive. And this is definitely the more budget version, but to be fair, I think this version is just better because you digging 6 with Prosperity is better than you just randomly drawing 2 cards anyways. So if you guys want to play a control / mid-range oriented deck that can put up boss monsters with multiple levels of interaction, multiple ways to recover your board, and multiple ways to gain you net advantage, I highly recommend Dragon Maids. It's a really cheap deck and really fun to play, and it definitely does look the part. All right, guys, so that's it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Hit that notification bell to join the squad, and comment down below if you agree or disagree with anything that I said or any of the decks or the tech choices that I've made. All right, guys. Also, if you guys want to see these decks being played live, head over to twitch.tv/HeadtoHead battles, where we stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we do a lot of Match Duels content. I'll leave it in the description box down below, so definitely go and hit that follow over there as well. Anyways, I've taken up way too much of your time because this was a long freaking video, but I want to tell you one last thing. I freaking love you guys so freaking much. Anyways, guys, this is Susu from HeadtoHead Battles, signing out.
What's up, guys? If you haven't subscribed, make sure to click that button right there in the middle.
Also, if you haven't watched that video that YouTube is recommending you, it's probably crazy, all right? Go watch it. This is Susu from HeadtoHead Battles,
HeadtoHead Battles,
signing out.